Hi folks, we're going to talk today about how to use a web style outline to organize a report. So this is something that a lot of you have started doing in class already, but some of you were just getting started and might need a reminder. So I wanted to put this together to help you with that. We're going to imagine that we're going to start a report on sea otters, and we're going to use this little book. Now, if you check out this little book that I have here, this is only in the level 1 reader section, which means that it's not going to have that much information in it. Check this out. There is only just a little bit on each page, and this is still enough for us to do an okay report. When you're working at home, you can use whatever books you have around, or you can hop on the internet and look at like zoo websites and things like that if you want to research an animal. They normally have a lot of great information. For today, we're going to practice using this little book I have. So we've set up the outline already. We have our topic in the middle, which is sea otters. And then we have 4 categories of information that we're going to look for. We're going to look for information about their body. So with this, you can think about, we're answering the question of what adaptations, what special stuff about sea otters' bodies make their life easier, make it so they can live their life. And we're going to look for those pieces of information. Over here with habitat, habitat means where they live. So we're not just going to write, oh, they live in the ocean. We're going to look for information that answers the question of where do they live and how do they survive there? So what things do they do in their habitat to make it work for them? Here we have a section for babies, because normally books will tell you something about how the animal reproduces and what care their babies need. We want to answer questions here like, how do they raise their young? If they give any care to their babies, what sort of care do they give? How long do the babies stay with their parents? Things like that. And then in food, we want to know what they eat and how they find it. So if they're a predator, how do they catch it? If they're an herbivore, how do they track down their food? How do they find the kind that they want? Things like that. And we're going to want a little bit of very basic information to just go right here, like maybe what type of animal is it? Is it a mammal or a reptile? Things like that. That way we can have an introduction. Your introduction is that beginning part of your report. So we're going to read this book together, and then we're going to work on gathering information to put on our outline. All right. Sea otters. Life at sea. These are sea otters. They spend most of their lives in the water. Relaxing. They can float on their backs. See what I mean? This is not a very information-dense book, but you'll still be okay to do a report. Grooming. Their fur keeps them warm and dry. They brush their fur and roll over to keep clean. Swimming. Sea otters use their webbed feet and flat tails to swim. Diving. They swim around to find food. They dive in and out of the kelp. Eating. They have strong teeth to bite into their food. And it says that this is a picture of a crab right here. There's a little note. They can hit a stone on a shellfish to crack the shell open. Caring. Otter pups can only float to begin with. Their moms take care of them. Sleeping. Sea otters may wrap kelp around their bodies when they sleep. That's the end. So if you want to give yourself a good practice challenge, right now I would suggest that you press pause, draw something like this on a piece of paper that you have, go back and listen to me reading the book one more time, and try and gather the information yourself all on your own so that when you unpause and watch me do it, you can see how you did. So pause, do that, and I'm going to assume you're back now. Welcome back. We're going to put together our outline together now. So let's think about what things we heard about the body of the animal, of the body of the sea otter. We're allowed to flip back through the book. Remember that an outline doesn't need to have sentences. It just needs to have notes to tell you what's going on and to help you remember the information. If notes that are little drawings work well for you, you can do notes that are little drawings on your outlines too. So let's think about their bodies. Oh, they had this part that says their fur keeps them warm and dry. So I'm going to write fur equals dry because that seems important to me. It says that they have webbed feet and flat tails to swim. I'm going to include that. So I'm going to write webbed feet, flat tails. All right, let's try their habitat section. Well, they're sea otters, so we know they live in the ocean. You can write that. This book didn't tell us what oceans they live in. If you want that information, that might be a good time to go to Google and type in, where do sea otters live? And find out things like what oceans they live in. For now, we're just going to use what's in the book. But if I were doing this report myself, I would want to know what ocean they lived in, and I would go use the internet to find an answer to that question. All right, so we know they live in the ocean. Now, let's think about the second half of the question. Not just where do they live, but how do they survive there? Well, we know they hold on to kelp. There was a page in here about that. They hold on to kelp when they sleep. I'm going to write sleepy kelp because I will remember the fact about them wrapping themselves in kelp so they don't float away when they sleep because I think that is a super adorable fact. Writing sleepy kelp will be enough for me to remember that. Let's see. Oh, there was a page in here that said that they float on their backs when they're sleeping. So let's write float on backs. All right, let's check another section. How about their food? Well, we saw the picture where it was eating a crab, so we know they eat crab. And there was the page where it said, let's see if we can find it. They can hit a stone on a shellfish to crack the shell open. So we know they eat shellfish. And then remember, we want information about how they find their food too, or how they get at it. So I think that part where they smash the shellfish open with a rock feels important to me. So I'm going to write bash with a rock, because that reminder works for me. You might write crack shellfish open on rocks or crack shellfish, whatever makes a good reminder for you. Let's see. That feels good. Oh, it did say in here that they dive in the kelp to hunt. So I'm going to write that they hunt in the kelp. Hunt in kelp. Now we just need some information about babies. There wasn't a lot in the book, but that's okay. So we know that the babies are called pups because it says otter pups. So pups. Because most animals have a specific name for the babies, like a baby cat is a kitten, a baby fox is a kit, all of those things. A baby otter is a pup. So that's a useful piece of information. We know that they can only float when they're babies. So only can float. And here it says their moms take care of them. Now, that tells us that the male sea otters aren't helping take care of the babies if the book says their mom takes care of them. It kind of suggests that idea. So I think we can put that down. So we can write mom's care. And we can tell from this picture, look, the mom sea otter is cuddling the baby sea otter, like floating it on its stomach. So we can also include that they carry them, right? Moms care and carry babies. Check that out. We have at least 3 facts in each section just from this wee tiny book. Now, let's go back to the basics that we're going to want for our introduction. Let's think about sea otters. We definitely can probably figure out, without the book telling us, what category of vertebrate a sea otter is. So let's think about it. Is a sea otter a fish? No. Is a sea otter an amphibian? No. Is a sea otter a reptile? No. Is a sea otter a bird? No. That means a sea otter is a mammal. It has fur, it gives birth to live babies, therefore mammal. So, mammal. We can think about what type of animal they are based on what we know they eat. There was only information about them eating meat, no information about them eating any sort of plant products. So that means they're a carnivore. If we wanted to know more, we could type this into a Google search engine too. We could say, maybe, what is the scientific name of a sea otter, if we wanted that fact. Or we could say, what are a sea otter's closest relatives, to find out what animals it's related to. Those would be great pieces of information that we could add. But for now, we're going to use just this. So what you have right here now is an outline, which is everything you need to write a report. So I would encourage you, if you're still getting used to the idea of writing a report, to take this outline and go write one yourself. It's okay if all of us do this work with the same information, because it's going to come out different. Now, just to practice, I'm going to show you how I would turn this into a report right now, just to see what it's like. And I'm going to do it straight off the top of my head. I haven't practiced. So our introduction should start with a big idea. So maybe let's say sea otters are adorable, fluffy mammals. They live in the ocean and are carnivores. That could be my introduction. I would like it to be a little bit nicer than that if I was working really hard, but since I just came up with it like that, it's okay. Then we would pick one of these sections to talk about. I'm going to start by talking about habitat, because I like to start there. I think it makes sense to know where you're coming from, where an animal lives. So that would mean it was a new paragraph, which means you go down to a new line and you scoot your words in a tiny bit. You make the indent where you go like one word space in before you start writing. That's how you signal people in your writing that I'm starting a new idea. We're not just saying the basics anymore. Now we're talking about where they live. We could say, let's see, sea otters live in the ocean. There are other types of otters called river otters that live in rivers, but sea otters live in the ocean. They float around on their backs and hunt for food in the kelp beds. When they sleep, they wrap kelp around themselves so they don't drift away. There, that's a paragraph about habitat. Then we do one about their body, one about their food, one about their babies. And at the end, we would want that thing called a conclusion, which is where you kind of just end the idea of your report. So you might add in a cool fact that you know. Like, I know a cool fact, which is that when they sleep, sometimes they hold hands too. They don't just wrap themselves in kelp, they hold hands so they don't drift away from their friends. And so I might include that fact in my conclusion just to make it cute. So I might say, what's my conclusion? Sea otters are fascinating mammals that are ridiculously adorable. They are so especially cute because when they fall asleep, sometimes they hold hands with their friends so they don't drift apart. And, I have another fact just from my brain I could put in there. I could say, sea otters almost went extinct during the fur trade. I'm really glad that they didn't go completely extinct and are doing better now because they are awesome. There you go. That's an idea for a report. If you're still getting used to this idea, take this information. We gathered it together. Go try and write a report. See how it goes. If you're super not interested in sea otters, go find your own thing and try and use this same structure for setting it up. See how it works. Let me know if you need some help and have a wonderful day. Bye, everyone.